Let me tell you the story of a woman named Olivia Reed, a story of dismissal, of silent fire, and of a will that could not be broken. It begins, in her own words, Jing gcca gdn chayan vien tip tic, nheng gig kala hang thut lalii ca Olivia. The certificate in my hand felt as insubstantial as tissue paper. The business award I had been so excited to share now seemed childish. Useless girl, you were never the bright one. My father's voice carried across the living room, slicing through the conversation like a blade. My relatives froze, wine glasses suspended in midair, eyes darting anywhere but at me. The pride I had felt just moments before evaporated, replaced by a familiar, hollow ache. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet as I stood there, exposed. My name is Olivia Reed. I am 31 years old, and this is the story of how I forced my family to finally see me. Growing up in the shadow of my brother, Nathan, was an exercise in invisibility. He was the golden child, the prodigy. My accomplishments were brushed aside like crumbs from the dinner table, too insignificant to acknowledge. At a recent family dinner, I tried to speak. Dad, I was thinking about expanding the company into. Olivia, please, he cut me off, his voice heavy with impatience. Your brother just secured $1 million contract. Can we focus on actual success for a moment? My mother offered a glance of sympathy, but remained silent. Silence was her native language. My aunt patted my hand, her voice a condescending whisper. Maybe business isn't your thing, dear. You were always so good with your little crafts. My tech startup, a company I had bled for over 3 years. A company with 15 employees and technology that was making waves in our industry. Reduced to a hobby, I nodded politely and excused myself. In the kitchen, a text from my business partner, Mia. Did you tell them about the investor meeting? I typed back, not yet. Timing's not right. What I didn't say was that the timing would never be right in this house. My father had decided long ago that I lacked what it took. Too emotional, he would say. Not strategic enough, and my personal favorite, not CEO material. I rejoined the family with a smile that did not reach my eyes. They saw a quiet, unremarkable daughter, content to exist in the background. Little did they know, their dismissal was not breaking me. It was fueling a fire. A quiet, cold, and patient fire that would soon grow so large it would force them all to see. That fire, fueled by years of dismissal, did not burn wildly. It burned with a cold, focused intensity. It found its home not in angry words, but in an old, renovated warehouse downtown. The home of my company, NeuroSync. It had started as an idea, sketched on napkins during lunch breaks at a job where I was told my ambitions were too aggressive. Now, it was a space with 15 employees and technology that was quietly making waves in predictive analytics. My business partner, Mia, knew the story. She saw the fire behind my eyes every time I returned from a family gathering. Same story, different day, I told her. Nathan secured a contract, and you'd think he'd solved world hunger. Meanwhile, we're just here, revolutionizing how businesses understand human behavior. Our work was my sanctuary and my battlefield. For 3 years, I had lived in a tiny apartment, eating ramen noodles, pouring every dollar and every waking hour back into the company. 18-hour days were the norm. All of it, fueled by a single, echoing voice in my mind, useless girl, you were never the bright one. Every line of code I wrote, every late night I spent staring at data, was an act of rebellion against that voice. Every small success was a stone in the foundation of a new reality I was building for myself. And then came the test, an investor meeting with Westlake Ventures. The kind of meeting that could turn our quiet revolution into an all-out war. The capital we needed to scale up to take on our main competitor. Horizon Data, the very company that had once rejected me, suggesting I look into something less technical. The conference room felt too warm. I could feel the weight of their skepticism. But as I began to speak, something shifted. The years of lonely work, of quiet obsession, had forged a certainty in me that could not be shaken. Horizon's approach, I explained, my voice steady, relies on historical data. They can tell you what a customer did yesterday. Our algorithm, using real-time emotional response indicators, can tell you what they will do tomorrow, 2 hours later. We stood in the lobby. Westlake had not only agreed to invest, they were leading a funding round that would value NeuroSync at $90 million. My phone rang. It was my mother, reminding me about my father's retirement party. "Maybe you can bring those cookies you used to make," she said. "Everyone always liked those." The contrast was staggering. In one world, I was the CEO of a $90 million company. In another, I was still just the girl who brings the cookies. That was the last time that narrative would stand. A storm was coming to my quiet little hometown, and this time, I was the one bringing it. The storm did not arrive with a gentle rain. It arrived like a thunderclap. Forbes, Business Insider, The Wall Street Journal. The announcement of our $90 million funding round was not supposed to go public yet. I had wanted to tell them myself, in my own way. But the world moves on its own schedule. My face stared back at me from the Forbes website. Disruptor alert, Olivia Reed named youngest female CEO in tech. The words felt foreign. My phone began to vibrate. An unrelenting flood of messages from colleagues, old classmates, distant relatives, all suddenly aware of my existence. But from my parents, from Nathan, nothing. The silence was louder than all the notifications combined. I called them. My father answered, his voice clipped, cold. "I suppose you think we'd be impressed," he said, his words dripping with disdain, making a show in the business pages. "Dad, I built this company from nothing. We'll see how long it lasts before reality sets in," he countered. "Nathan's built something solid, something real." And in that moment, something inside me broke, not my spirit, but the lifelong, desperate need for his approval. I finally understood. You cannot reason with a narrative that has been cemented for 30 years. You cannot ask it to change, you must shatter it. Sunday arrived. The day of his retirement party. I sat in my car outside their home, watching the guests arrive. The same people who had watched me fade into the background for years. I took a deep breath. The old Olivia would have walked in quietly, carrying a plate of cookies, hoping for a nod of approval. But the old Olivia was dead. I stepped out of my new Jaguar F-Type, a congratulatory gift to myself, purchased with a small advance from the deal that had closed just yesterday. It was not subtle. It was not meant to be. Eyes turned. Conversations stopped. My cousin's mouth hung open. "Is that Olivia?" My mother saw me next, her greeting freezing on her lips as she took in the sight. Gone was the practical daughter in sensible shoes. Today, I wore a tailored cream suit, designer heels. Jewelry that spoke a quiet language of success she did not understand. Olivia, she managed to say you look different. I approached my father at the grill, extending a small, elegantly wrapped package. Happy retirement, Dad. He took it, his expression unreadable. As I walked away, I heard one of his friends ask, Bob, isn't that your daughter who's been in the news? The CEO, the whispers started to spread. $90 million, Forbes, the youngest female CEO. The narrative they had all accepted for so long was beginning to crack under the weight of an undeniable new reality. They had spent a lifetime making me invisible, so I had decided to become a sight they could never, ever ignore. The power had shifted, and the party had just begun. The whispers followed me for the rest of the afternoon, a new kind of narrative taking root in the minds of people who had never truly seen me. Relatives who once offered condescending advice now sought my opinion on the market. Nathan, my brother, the golden child, approached me with a newfound respect, asking about a potential partnership, the very same partnership he had dismissed years ago. I simply told him, I'll have my assistant reach out. My father remained by the grill, a silent observer of this new world order. He had not yet opened my gift. Eventually, he tapped his glass for a speech. He spoke of his career, of his retirement. Then, he turned to his children. I'm proud of Nathan, he said, and the crowd applauded politely. And Olivia, he continued, his voice faltering, just for a moment, who apparently has been quietly building something none of us fully understood. The yard was silent, every eye was on him, on me. I always said she was the emotional one, he added with a hollow laugh. It seems I may have underestimated how far that emotional intelligence could take her. It was not an apology, not even close, but it was something more important. It was a crack in the foundation of his reality. A public acknowledgement that the frame he had built for me no longer fit. Later that night, I found him alone, nursing a whiskey. He was holding my gift, still unopened. You haven't opened it, I said. He looked at me then, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. So, he said finally, CEO, yes, of a $90 million company. Yes, a long silence passed between us. I don't understand it, he finally admitted, this tech stuff. You don't need to understand the technology, Dad. Just understand that I built something valuable. Something lasting. He nodded slowly. He knew what I had done. The car, the suit, the public success. I had not come for a fight. I had come to present an undeniable new truth. I had come to shatter the old frame, once and for all. 2 months later, my family attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony for NeuroSync's new headquarters. My mother hugged me, her eyes filled with a pride I had never seen before. My father stood near the entrance. He was wearing the watch I had given him. A small gesture, but significant. I walked over to him. You know, Dad, I said, my voice calm, all those times you called me useless. It hurt, but it also pushed me to prove you wrong. He looked at me, at the empire of glass and steel around us, and a complex mixture of pride and regret washed over his face. You certainly did that, he said. Yes, I agreed, I did. And in that moment, standing in the building that bore my company's name, I finally felt it, not victory over him, but freedom from the lifelong need for his approval. I was Olivia Reed, CEO, architect of my own success. And no one would ever call me useless again.